Hi, I'm Greg Eifler. I'm the tech coach for the Northwest region this year, and this is going to be a short tutorial on how to create a Google Forms quiz. So Google Forms quizzes are excellent for embedding in Google Classroom or just sending out to students for very short formative assessments that you can manage within the Google universe. So Google has just recently added a new quiz assignment feature, and this would create a quiz with all the settings that you need, and you can edit this and immediately post to your Google Classroom. So if you're not posting this to your Google Classroom, you can always create the quiz outside of Classroom, and I'll cover that in a little bit. But to edit this, just click on it. So for this quiz, let's just do a quick math quiz because everybody enjoys math so much. And so you have the opportunity to create multiple choice questions, which is one answer only. You can create checkbox questions where they can select multiple responses, a drop-down list, which again would be just one response, but it's a little more compact than the multiple choice. Short answer and paragraph answers are free form. There really isn't a whole lot of difference between short answer and paragraph other than the visual that you are given for your text box, for example. File upload, if you wanted people to submit images or other documents to your Google Drive, then you can have them do that with the file upload type. Linear scale, multiple choice grid, checkbox grid, these are ways of compressing multiple choice and checkboxes into kind of a matrix, which is helpful. And then you have dates and times that can be set up. So I'm going to keep this as a multiple choice question. I'm actually going to do the lazy route, and I'm going to just select a pre-made problem from another website, and I'm going to copy that text and put it into my question here. You can also make an image, which is a screen print or any other image like a Google drawing that you've done and save to an image, that sort of thing, and add that or even just use that only as your question. Let me format this just a little. Well, let's see if I can do that. There we go. So that might be a little easier to read for students. So I'm going to go back, and these are my options. So you can see where it says option. And forgive my sloppy typing. But so you can have the students enter one of these options. I'm going to make this a required question so students cannot skip it. And since this is a quiz, I can set the points and the answer by selecting answer key. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vertices, so that's a pentagon. And I'm going to select that as the answer. I'm going to give that 1 point. You can add feedback for incorrect answers, for example. And see if that helps them. You can add a video or a link, which is super clever. And so this would be one of my questions that I can post. Now, really, this quiz is pretty much set to go. If I go back to my classwork, let me actually change the name here, CFA for Common Formative Assessments. I'm going to leave this ungraded, and I can make a topic and organize that way. Also, I can make our APS managed Chromebooks lock this down so when they're in the quiz, they can't Alt-Tab out and do research on what's going on. This grade importing is for importing the score from the quiz once it's been submitted into the Google Gradebook, which again is really cool. This rubric is just a beta test, so that's coming for your average user. I'm one of the testers for that. So if I click Assign, now this has been posted for any of my students in the sample class. If they click on this, and they can go to the math quiz and then take the quiz. So to test this out and see what students would see, you can go to the preview icon, which is that eyeball. When you click on it, it'll present the quiz as students would see it. Their email address would be here. I'm going to select an answer. I'm going to submit. So currently the quiz settings are that I could see my score. And so obviously I got it wrong, but it shows me my feedback. And then if you had the settings that they could take it again, maybe they can go back and practice and try and get the right answer. So if I go back to my form, I can see the responses here. It gives me a breakdown on everybody that took the quiz. So I can see graphs and actual responses and make an analysis there. We'll do that in another module. Go by individual question or even just one student's quiz results. I always like to click on the Sheets icon so I can get my results in a spreadsheet, because this allows me more flexibility when I'm trying to do data analysis. Now, if I'm going to create a form and make it a quiz from scratch outside of Google Classroom, I'm going to have to create a form within either the Google Forms, or I'm going to use a URL. So this is the shortcut that Google has given us to create something new. So I'm going to hit return. It gives me a new form, but this is just a Google form. This is not built for a quiz. So I have to go to my settings here. When I click on that, I usually like to keep a lot of this stuff. I like to collect student email addresses, give them the opportunity for a response receipt, restrict it to APS Google, depending on what you're using the assessment for. If it's just for practice, maybe you don't want to limit to one response. Maybe you want to let them practice multiple times. For this, I'm going to make it more formal and limit to one response. That's the default in the other quiz. Editing after submitting is usually something I don't do, but that's an option. This is not something I typically touch unless you wanted to type in a new confirmation message. So shuffling the question order, I don't have multiple questions, but it depends. Like a formative assessment typically wouldn't be that big a deal. If it's a big summative test, maybe you do want to shuffle it. The progress bar I usually don't use, but here, when you're making it a quiz, you have to click the slider to make a quiz. Again, you can turn on locked mode for APS managed Chromebooks. The default is to release the grade, but if you have, for example, short answers, then you're going to want to grade those manually typically, because even though you can set an answer key for a short response, it's difficult for Google to grade those automatically. You have to set up the answer key really specifically. So I do like to use the manual review. I usually don't like students to see a lot of this, just because for a lot of these questions, along the lines of, oh, I know what my correct answer should be, that kind of reduces the cognitive demand. But again, it's up to you and what you want to do. But I have to remember to click save, and now I have all the options of the Google quiz that I created in Google Classroom. And if you wanted to send this out to students, you can send it using emails. Google Classroom is much more efficient that way. You can also embed a link and shorten the link so it doesn't look as intimidating, or you can embed it using the iframe for a website in Google Sites or other sites. So hopefully that'll get you started in creating Google Forms for formative assessment.